On this tonight's episode of A Gem of a Secret podcast, we have some information about our live show. It actually turns out our live show is now going to be the first Thursday of the month at the Queen's Head from 6 to 9 p.m.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Gem of a Secret podcast. My name's Donna.
And my name is Coco Gem Holiday.
How are you doing tonight, Coco?
Oh, girl, we've had
A day.
a day.
Oh my
So much
God.
conversations in one single day, like you
So
wouldn't
much
even believe.
drama, conflama.
Drama, conflama, just all day long. But yeah, seriously, I'm doing decently okay. I've had a really interesting week. I'm up for promotion here soon. And we'll see if I get that. So I'm doing all right.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Let's get this out. What are you wearing this evening?
I'm actually just dressed as a nice, relaxing bag of chamomile tea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought there'd be more to the description for chamomile tea.
Yeah, it's a tea bag, and my hair is the string. It's just like in a large like top knot.
And here I just
that's
thought you were
pulled
wearing
down.
like a square pillowcase.
Yeah,
was,
that.
like,
But I have a
shredding.
big top knot for the string on the tea bag.
I am wearing actually it's just the wrapper to like
Yeah.
a Jolly Rancher is kind of what I went for.
Okay.
So that's why the gold thing is wrapped around my legs to where I can't really walk, and then like my hair is like kind of has this gold band too.
Oh.
And the rest of it's just like plastic that looks a little knotted.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then my
Nice.
face isn't beat at all.
Okay. That was more than I needed to know.
Because she can see me in this beautiful avant-garde outfit that
that
have.
she is wearing tonight.
I'm regal.
She's on display. Well, I said that I was a soothing bag of chamomile tea tonight because it is kind of in line with our topic of this episode.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of like unpack some historical trauma that has existed in this city and the drag
Since we moved
queer
here and
community.
before we moved here.
Yeah, stuff we heard before we moved here. Like,
Uh-huh.
we want to talk about those pages that randomly pop up to talk about all the tea or the drama in the queer community or the gay community or or drag community or things like that. And so we want to talk about that just a little bit.
Okay, and I'm sure this happens in other cities as well. Like, right? It's got to.
I would think it has to,
Yeah.
but like I don't know if it has to.
It didn't happen where we're from because it's just too small.
I didn't see. Well, and the thing is, I didn't really see it in Denver either. Really, not. I mean, it might have existed, but I didn't really know. And like what we're talking about too, just to be a little bit more specific and like to give backstory, is like we all remember the TV show Gossip Girl, right?
XOXO Gossip Girl.
XOXO.
There was the anonymous watcher that exposed everyone.
Exactly. And it was a website that they just exposed all the tea of the Upper East Side. And and that's what it was about. And that's what we're kind of on this topic. And actually going back to that is I know that the idea of gossip is so interesting to us because it makes life seem so much more interesting. Like even people who are absolutely against drama will sometimes be like, "Ooh, girl, what's the tea?" Because like drama just makes life a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
To people who are not involved.
Yeah.
Because like when you think about the ho humdrum of like, well, I have two kids and they have soccer practice and I go to work and I go home and I make dinner for my family, like that repetitive thing is fun and exciting and it might be fulfilling, but it might not be drama filled. They're like, there's no like ending movie sequence or whatever. And so people kind of get off on the idea of these gossip rags. I mean, like
They do.
like PerezHilton.com from back in the day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least here's the thing with Perez. At least Perez had the wherewithal to put his face and name on everything that he's saying. These pages don't even do that. These are entirely anonymous.
True. Like, I mean, even in the whole concept of Gossip Girl, it was an anonymous website that anybody could submit to.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of makes it a little bit more gross. And you're right. Perez Hilton did put their face on everything.
Yeah.
So you could see exactly who was doing it. And I mean, I know that these kind of concepts have existed for this kind of entertainment for a long time. Like, in the sense of like Hollywood Insider magazine and stuff like that. And like, giving you these inside dish to this whole extravagant lifestyle that you might not lead. But what happened when the internet started to come around is that then an anonymity became a thing.
Yeah. And we kind of want to discuss the repercussions, implications, and ramifications of what that means for smaller micro queer communities in cities like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And and before we get directly into the pages, like, it reminds me of I remember every once in a while, like, because like court systems and pageant systems are notorious for like cancel culture kind of things, and whatever. And so like it reminds me of that, like people who are so cutthroat about how and why something should exist, that they have to spread this information to as many people as possible and hopefully get people to react to it. So when it comes to the pages that we're talking about, we're going to start at the beginning from what we know, which is Gay Portland Tea.
Yeah, so that seemed to be the one that everyone was talking about when we moved here.
Yeah, and it was shut down by the time we
got here.
It was shut down.
It was. And there was lots of speculation on who that was, and we've heard quite consistently who everyone thinks it is. But that basically would call out and kind of expose different people in the community, and it caused a certain level of drama, and obviously like caused a lot of conflict because it was someone once again just operating behind this anonymous profile, and it seemed to have, I mean, a lot of people were really upset by that based off of what I gathered when we moved here.
Yeah, there was just like a lot of people who felt a way about it because they weren't mentioned too. Yeah. And then there was tea about, and then obviously because it's like a gossip rag, there's also not a clear explanation about why.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
Which also I think is completely disgusting.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, okay, so the thing is, I always thought the idea of like having a Gossip Girl would be kind of interesting or whatever because they glamorize what that actually would look like in real life. But when we moved here and I saw how many people who felt taken aback by it, it actually made me really change my tune on something like that.
Well, it's a way to trash people without any sort of accountability or consequence for your actions because you're doing it anonymously.
Yeah, and it's like
there are no ramifications.
There's no ramifications. It's for people's enjoyment at the cost of people's like mental health and well-being.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to say it. I'm familiar with this. Coco knows because it's how we met. There was an app called Post Secret that spread some pretty awful rumors about me and did it anonymously. I confronted the profile and ended up figuring out who it was, and that's when it finally stopped. But it was a way for someone to spread really defamatory statements without any sort of consequence to what that would mean if they were found out, because they were able to do it through an anonymous profile. And I remember while it was happening to me, it was very early on in kind of how we interacted online and through social media. And as far as like cancel culture, it was pre-cancel culture basically. But it was around the time things like that were starting. And I remember it made me feel incredibly anxious because there were people I knew that would come up to me and approach me about it and be like, did you see this? And I would have to address these awful things that were being said about me on my campus. And unfortunately, it was because I pissed someone off, and they took it very personally. And it was a very big public shaming for me, even though there weren't a ton of people on the app at the time. It still made me very anxious and nervous about my own reputation and what people thought of me.
Yeah. And I remember, I think that is the one of why we became friends in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, because I wanted to ask you about it. And I think it's like, I had saw something on Whisper. God, Whisper.
Was it Whisper or was it Post Secret?
Whisper.
Okay.
It was Whisper. Because Post Secret is the website with the postcards.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Whisper.
Yeah.
But then also somebody had created a fake Grindr. And I remember that's what because I saw both. And I remember I wanted to sit down and talk with you because they were some pretty serious allegations.
Yeah.
It's saying, I did this to this person, and I'm that, blah, 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 blah. And we met at Quincy's, I remember that, on Main Street, to be like, hey, girl, like, I just wanted to know about this stuff. God,
yeah.
I was such a nosy busybody back in the day. Because, like,
yeah.
Just,
But it's how drama starts.
Yeah, but it's also not... But it's a good story though, because the reality situation is like, even me, a person who just met you, saw it, and it made me. But I'm a person who doesn't like to just believe the gossip immediately. I like to like try to unpack it and understand what it means for me internally.
Well, and a lot of people in that very small queer community treated me differently for a number of years, and I think a lot of it was due in part to that. You know,
makes sense.
At least I always wondered if when people didn't return messages from me, if that was the reason why, or what it was. But that was, I mean, it's incredibly damaging. And so I've definitely been on the receiving end of it before in my own little, smaller town setting. So for me, it's like pages like this, when I see them pop up here, I just think that there's a lot of cowardice behind it.
Yeah, there's absolutely a crap ton of cowardice behind it, because like I did Google Gay Portland Tea, because there's always, remember, the internet is forever.
Yeah.
And so kind of what came up is people posting about it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like they would share what was posted about them on Facebook, and they would kind of like go into what that meant and like how it posted and what it sounded like and things like that, and like people were just so pissed. Like there were viral posts on Facebook about how pissed people were that this thing existed, and it just like it would try, and it, because Gay Portland Tea wasn't just about drag artists, like it was about just queer people in general, and like there is a lot of queer people that live in Portland, but this page was just wreaking havoc. And the sad thing about it is you have to remember, like, you can't really send, I mean, I guess you could, but you can't really send anonymous things to a page. Like your profile or your page has to come up in some capacity, and I guess you could have made a fake Instagram to send things to the page, to post about your friends. Yeah. Or post about people you didn't like or care about, or things that happened. But like, God, I think about all the information I even know in my own life right now about queer people in this community, and like to just blast it on the internet like that would just be so gross. Yeah. Oh my God. Because there's nothing to be gained by it.
There's not. And before we go on to have our quick commercial break, I do want to say a lot of the reason too why we're bringing this up is because it is fairly relevant right now.
Yeah, because another one popped up.
And you were tagged in one of their stories.
And I was tagged. Oh my God.
You had the pleasure of being called out by one of these pages recently.
The pleasure of being called out the first post that they had. I'm just so honored.
Yeah, at least it wasn't a post, it was just on their story, so it was on their story for a day, but still, it's like, fucking really?
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm actually not going to tell people what page it is. I don't need to drive traffic there, because that's actually stupid, and one would not be great for my mental health. Yeah. But that's why I can talk about some of the other ones that are kind of non-existent or dead. Yeah. Because, like, it's not going to hurt me. Yeah. But, before we get too far into it, Donna, how are you doing this evening?
Well, Coco, I will let you know after this brief commercial break.
Drag Danger Zone is a monthly showcase featuring new and established performers every month, every fourth Thursday at Mississippi Pizza, located at 3552 North Mississippi Avenue. This fun cabaret variety show is hosted by Marla Darling, Valerie DeVille, and DJ Aurora. For ticket info, find us on Instagram at Drag Danger Zone PDX or Facebook at Drag Danger Zone. And get into the zone. The Drag Danger Zone, that is.
It's a podcast with Coco and Donatella podcast. Tune into What They Tell You podcast with Coco and Donatella podcast.
Well, Coco, I'm feeling like that chamomile has worn off. I'm a little less relaxed and a little more energized, so I'm switching to green tea right now.
I love green tea.
Because it has a little bit of caffeine. But yeah, we are talking about tea Instagram accounts, tea social media accounts that spread gossip and do so anonymously.
Yeah, so I forgot to bring this up in the first half when we were talking about TV shows that kind of did this, but Bridgerton, which is another Shondaland show that came out, which is like kind of a mix between Downton Abbey and Gossip Girl, actually has like a gossip rag in it too, and like it's narrated by Julie Andrews, and it's beautiful, and it's a really interesting show, and it's a great concept because like there's this drama, like, and the show kind of talks about why people are so interested in what her name is, Lady Whistledown, and because they just want to be a little bit like part of the story. They want the juice, right? They want it to be juicy, but the thing is like, when those things are happening in real life, like those pages are incredibly toxic.
They are. And it's also just like not done as cool, you know?
No, it's not. Because like it doesn't actually end up, it's not usually good literary writing or something like that.
Yeah, and like what does it accomplish? Like
Nothing.
other than like someone's selfish narrative to like fuck up people's lives.
Yeah, just bullying people consistently.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is. It's just the way the Portland's ones have been, it's like it's bullying people and
Yeah.
trying to like spread their secrets, which is not really cool. Because like we said in the first half, because I can't really remember, it's been a long break. Like I was recently tagged in one of these tea pages recently, and because I was their first posting on their story, and like I said, I'm not going to talk about the page name or anything like that because that's really not what it's about. But the thing is, like, so when I saw that, and they were kind of like referencing like stuff that happened at Local Lounge or whatever, what they think the tea is behind it.
Which, if you want the tea, listen to our episode on Local Lounge. Coco gives her entire side of the story on what happened with Local Lounge.
Yeah, and why it closed. So, God, that'd be great if they could just like direct people to the podcast.
For real, get us some traffic at least.
Get us some traffic if we're gonna be awful. Because the thing about those pages is like, so there was a gay Portland Tea Part 2. That is dead and kind of over now. And that page was kind of weird and kind of awful too, because like it was like also kind of making fun of people to a degree, and like it was just kind of gross in that way.
Yeah.
And even though it had a couple of positive posts on there as well, it just was not. That's like not what this community ever needed.
No.
This community has the ability to be so toxic and so hurtful to each other and like cancel each other left and right for doing literally anything. And I just think that it's so wrong to be in a zone where you're just worried that somebody's going to post something about you on the internet. I mean, in the sense of like on a tea page.
Yeah. And then there were also the anonymous pages that happened around the time that Stag was experiencing a lot of controversy, and people speculated that it was someone that had a lot to do with Stag that was making those posts.
Yeah, there was they thought the previous owner of Stag was also involved in making some of those pages and some of those posts.
Yes.
And the thing is, because me and Donna, the reason we wanted to talk about this isn't to say what the pages were. We wanted to talk about the ramifications.
Because we don't want to promote these pages. Like, really, we do not want to promote this at all. And the only reason why people know Gay Portland Tea is because it was so damn infamous and notorious, and it has since been shut down. So
right. And so one of the things is when there is a drag artist in the community, and I'm going to say their name because it's important to this story because it was never fully proven. And she's been trying really hard to get back from that narrative, specifically that narrative. And this artist was, they changed their name to Petty Page to they stopped doing drag because everybody blamed them for one of the page's creations. And I don't know definitively if they did or did not do that. But the reality is this person had to literally take such a step back from the scene because of the hatred from the page.
Yeah.
And regardless of how you feel about that individual for any other actions they may or may not have done, that specific action wasn't specifically proven. And so that's a repercussion, that's a ramification, that's a consequence of this stuff happening.
Yeah.
That somebody had to like remove themselves from the scene. Because like, what if somebody said that this new T page was myself? I'm not gonna leave the scene. Like,
No.
but what if like the majority of the queer community or the drag queen community thought it was
Court of
me?
public opinion thought it was you.
Yeah, like that would just destroy my reputation.
Yeah.
And it would be so hard for me to get bookings and gigs and things like that. And then people would consistently bring it up too.
Yeah.
Like people consistently bring it up to Petty. Like they do. Like,
yeah.
And nobody lets it die.
Honestly, if we have any grievances to air, we'll do so on this podcast.
I know, seriously. This is
Like,
where it'll be.
Honestly, isn't this where we go to like bitch about things like that have happened in our week? Like, I don't know. I personally, I'm very thankful that I've never been called out on any of those pages. I also have tried to stay very, very to myself within the last year or so, and a lot of the reason why I took a big break from drag was not only just because of my sobriety, but I saw a lot of the nastiness and honestly a lot of the kind of like juvenile behavior that happens in drag communities and within queer communities. And I think these pages are kind of like the big showing of that behavior, of that
It's
juvenile
also,
behavior.
But it's also used as ammunition.
Yeah.
Too. So like, yeah, it is absolutely, it's like, yeah, I will say like it's a description of what this community can like at its worst. Like it's the personification of some of the worst attributes of this community is when those pages exist.
Yeah, it is.
And that's what sucks because obviously people in this community, at least in my opinion, don't have the ability to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And so they use these pages or these ambiguous Facebook posts to just destroy each other. And that sucks because also remember, we haven't talked about this part yet. When people post on those things, there's usually comments and likes that follow. Like, so if you have something said negatively about you and then there's like three comments but like 400 likes, like that still feeds into that nature of cancel culture, which we talk about on this podcast often.
Yeah.
And that's also not good for anybody.
Incredibly damaging.
So incredibly
damaging. It can lead to people experiencing suicidal thoughts. It can so many ramifications that come from seeing yourself put up on that public shaming block and getting the tomatoes thrown at you in forms of likes, comments, shares, all that stuff. It's incredibly damaging.
And and the thing is, let me just ask you, and listeners, if you're listening to this and you want to comment on our website as well too with your answers, what do you think the purpose of you as an individual wanting to create that page? What would be the purpose for you to do that?
To spin a narrative, honestly. Like why else but to spin a narrative for other people because you feel that they are a certain way. I think it really does come down to pettiness and to drama in a lot of ways.
If you were to ask me that question,
yeah,
it would be because if I was a person who spun up a page like that, it would be because I felt like I didn't have a voice. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have a little bit of fame. Mm-hmm. I wanted to anonymously hurt people who've hurt me.
Yeah.
I think those would be the three primary reasons why I would create one.
Well, and I'd say something that both of our responses have in common is that they are all very juvenile behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, going back to the fact that a lot of queer people experience a certain level of arrested development in our lives.
Yeah.
And that's because we have very traumatic childhood experiences.
That's tea.
Most of the time. Many of us do, I would say. But it perpetuates that. You know, it perpetuates that stereotype that we are in this stage of arrested development and, like, being mean fucking high school girls. Like, you know, you're not fucking Gossip Girl. You're not fucking what's her name in Bridgerton. You're not fucking A from Pretty Little Liars. Like,
that was the other one.
Yeah, like, grow the fuck up, honestly, is what I have to say to people who think that it's necessary to start these pages and drag people anonymously. Like, if you have issues with people, you need to go to therapy and work on your conflict resolution skills and not fucking air it, like, to cause problems. Like, it's just so incredibly frustrating to see, and I think that you do a real disservice to the community when you put pages like this out there.
Like, hiding behind that as an outlet, if you need that thing in your life, is actually just kind of really damaging.
Mm-hmm.
So,
incredibly.
And the other thing, so the other part of this equation too that I think that we should touch on real quick is that some of the longer lasting effects of this dynamic is people become untrusting of each other.
Yes. Yep.
And so what does that picture look like for, like, what advice would you give to somebody to be able to repair those relationships after you've been blasted on a pace like that?
To repair those relationships? I don't even know, like, to the public? Like, if you've been the target of the blasting?
Yes.
Just be genuine, you know? I think people can see through bullshit most of the time. If you're authentically you, if you're genuine to other people, and you don't have anything to hide, then I think people will be more forgiving. I also think that you don't have anything to prove if you're the one that's a target of that shit.
That's fair.
You don't have anything to prove to anyone else. Like, just because someone woke up one day and decided that they want to fucking ruin your life, and, you know, this way, and I say ruin your life, it makes it sound dramatic, but in a lot of ways it can be life-ruining, you know? Like, if it gets enough reach, what if one of these posts was, like, completely viral, you know?
Yeah.
It went even further, and, like, I don't know, you don't owe anything to the audience, especially if they decide to believe one of these T pages. I just say, be authentic, be you, and rise above that shit. You know, I know it's not easy, but I would use the gray rock method, because obviously the person who created this page wants some sort of reaction. The best thing you could do is give them nothing.
That's a really good point. I'm one of those people that I try so hard, and, like, it's the thing that I've worked on over the last year, is trying hard to not give a reaction. But I've also recognized that if you stay silent and not like try to heal yourself in whatever outlet you need to, that sometimes it can become damaging. Like, people have attacked me a lot over the last year, and I realized that was also making me more depressed than not saying anything.
Well, and this podcast, I think, has been a healing outlet for you to say things.
It has been a healing outlet, and also those episodes got a lot of reach, so...
Yeah, it's like, if people want to know your thoughts on it, then, like, listen to us. We're gonna we're gonna make you support our endeavors.
I know.
If you wanna hear our actual thoughts on things like this, you know, for real.
Yeah, because
it's like buy into our content and support us if you really want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm at this. What is it called? The phrase is, I've hit the ceiling of what I'm allowing myself to take.
Yeah.
And I can't take anymore. So this podcast has been very healing for me in that capacity, so I could actually get my thoughts out in the way that I want to. And I don't really bash people on this thing. I don't feel like there's a need to. What I would like to do is heal from these moments that we have that are so toxic and negative, to where these pages have to come from for people to not, like... That's why we're kind of doing the podcast live thing, is so people can have a voice for different things that we ask them about in the community.
Yeah.
And also giving you all the ability to learn these people outside of what you just heard through, like, a Facebook post or, like, a Facebook cancellation.
And this podcast has always been a two-way street when it comes to communication. Like, we can talk about things that we want to for an hour and a half, or or half an hour, however long these episodes are, depending on which episode you're listening to. But we have always opened up communication lines for people to respond to us, to come on the podcast and talk with us if you want to.
Yeah.
And that's why we're also having this live version, not only do we want to interview people in our community, but we want to be able to respond back to people, accordingly.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, be looking at our website at gemofasecretpodcast.com to get all the information on our live shows. That was weird to say. But no, it's true. I think that, like, I love having civil discourse. I always tell, Dawn always yells at me. I'm like, yeah, come yell at me in my face. And the thing is, when I'm saying that nowadays, I actually kind of mean it into a degree. Like, if you're going to be screaming about me on the internet, you could at least kind of say it to my face.
Yeah, for real, though. Like, honestly, I do feel the same way. Like, yes. I would rather you just talk to me.
Yeah, just talk with me.
I'm a lot more approachable in person, too. Like, we can have a very nice conversation.
Yeah, and I feel the same. And that's what.
And I will take full accountability if I hurt your feelings or did anything. Yeah,
I love to take accountability for my actions that I've done, especially if it's in person, because when you take accountability on the internet, people will immediately say, that was the apology. That apology was so fake. That apology wasn't sincere.
You can't,
enough.
There's no doing it right.
Oh, God,
There's no doing it right. I've never seen an internet apology really go well.
I will literally always, like, for some that I see go really well, I will see one comment there, like, because I hate that comment. This is what accountability looks like.
Yeah.
Comment underneath this whack-ass apology. Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you can't please the internet with your apologies.
You can't please everybody. No,
like, it's just not going to happen.
You can't.
Like, it's so... And honestly, that is becoming one of my hated phrases whenever I read, this is what accountability looks like. I'm like, stop it. Just stop. Because that means you're policing how people can be accountable. That means that there's only one correct way to be accountable. And guess what? We have to be accountable to 1,500 situations. And so accountability is going to look different for every single person in every single situation. So stop saying this is what accountability looks like. Because guess what? We don't know what it looks like. Yeah. You just might feel real good about the way somebody was holding themselves accountable.
Yeah. About how they worded things or, their cadence even. Like, it's so subjective. It's so subjective.
Oh, God, it's so subjective. That's why our womb lens episode, I feel.
Oh, my God. By the way, 500 plus downloads on that episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chelsea and Lance, for using your awful situation to get downloads, but I felt like we talked about it in a productive manner, and it wasn't a way that memed the hell out of the situation.
Oh God, it's so true. I thought our Oscar episode would actually do better because that was a hot topic at the time too.
Yeah.
But people must have been real tired about talking about Will and Jada and Chris by that point.
Yeah.
Which I was too, to be honest. It kind of got to be ridiculous. Actually, just as a side note about that real quick here, because I do want to include it as kind of like a follow-up to that episode we had, whatever week that's going to be posted, is that the one thing that I read today at the time of filming this was that somebody had said online, Will Smith's consequences for that slap are not meeting the standard that counterparts, black and white, have gotten in certain capacities. Like, people are destroying the career of this person that we've all loved, who's always had a really good reputation in the media and blah 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 blah, outside of what happens with his wife, and people are just literally just trying to take him down. And
yeah, I think the Academy can't go out there and say we don't condone violence when they gave Oscars to the likes of people like Harvey Weinstein and whatever the fuck his name is.
Well, they gave an Oscar, he won, C.K. Lewis, I think, won something that night, too. Won an Oscar that night.
Yeah.
And he's that comedian that abused his power to, I think it was mostly just, to get women to sleep with him, or,
Louis C.K.
Louis C.K., yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was, sorry, I don't know the whole details of that situation. I don't want to
He exposed his genitals to multiple women,
and he felt like he could do that because of his power.
Yeah, it was a power play, and sexual coercion, all that stuff. There are men who have committed violent assaults against women in the industry for decades, and I think it is laughable for the Academy that when a black man who is beloved by a lot of people, goes up there and slaps the guy for saying something about his wife that was very sensitive. When something like that happens, they vilify him. I think the Academy needs to do better. And I think to anyone who is online up in arms about it, being like, oh, violent, how violent, examine your reactions to the white men that were receiving awards for years that did awful atrocities. Like, if you're not having at least a modicum of the same energy for them, then you need to really re-examine how you're treating this situation.
Yeah, and I also want to throw out there too, especially to queer people, because we just seem to be incredibly loud about everything for some reason these days. I do want to say that, like, people are always like, well, violence isn't the answer. And I have to tell you that pretty much every single group of people that has gotten rights in our world in a way that has jumped forward versus a stepped forward usually came from something that was incredibly violent. So we can say that violence isn't the answer, but guess what? Especially for queer people, violence was the answer in a lot of different capacities, and same for black people. Like, the only reason that we've said this on a previous episode, that reason that Martin Luther King crossing that bridge at Selma got the notoriety that it did is because it was filmed with the cops beating the crap out of everybody on that bridge. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why it went viral back in the day. And even so, as queer people, our rights came from the Stonewall riots.
Yeah.
Which was a very violent time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, nobody may have died, but it was still very violent.
Yeah, it was violent revolution.
Yeah, it's violent revolution. So, like, please, like, just remember, like, when you're, like, spouting that stuff, like, well, yeah, nothing came from this, like, people riot in the streets even today. Like, we live in Portland. Like, we pushed back the National Guard like, from being in our city, from the fact that we didn't want them to be here. And, like, there was incredibly loud protests that happened. Yeah. And they were violent at times too.
Yeah. I mean, and as far as anything else goes with the whole Will and Chris Rock thing, it's an issue with a ton of nuance and a ton of even cultural context. And I, as a white person, have really no reason to be giving a large opinion about it. I think that there needs to be some examining on it. There's a bunch of nuance that goes along with the situation. And I can't stand firm and say, oh, it was violent and it was wrong and da-da-da-da-da. And, yeah, I don't think that that's our responsibility. It's not.
Yeah, I don't. Agreed. I agree with that outlook on it, because, like, I just feel like when you're not part of that nuanced conversation, like, because it's a nuanced conversation, then it just can get muddied. Yeah. And
you're just adding to the many people online that are saying, like, I don't condone violence. That was bad. What happened to the old Oscars? Blah, blah, blah. You know, you're being counterproductive.
Yeah. And actually that brings us back to our point of the episode, actually, which is a great roundabout way of getting here. Mm-hmm. Like, the productivity of conversations that happen when these T pages are created actually is not productive. No. Like, a lot of people are just like, they'll either agree with the person, like, yeah, they're trash. Yeah. Or they will literally say nothing, or they'll just talk about how the T page is garbage. Like, like, that's the conversations that are coming from it, and none of those conversations are anywhere near productive. No. Nobody's healing from a T page, by the way. No one is. No. Like, no one can move forward from it. And then also, especially because a lot of the T pages we're talking about are like Gay Portland Tea or queer or drag or whatever kind of things. You get straight people involved in our communities, which also hurts our show attendance when these pages get too big.
They're like, oh, so this is what the queer community is about, you know? Like, it just...
And then you have them talking about our struggles and our dynamics.
Yeah, and granted, like, I don't care to look any kind of certain way to straight people because I'm radically and unapologetically queer, but stop fucking making us look bad.
Just Donna, one sentence. I don't care what they say. But also, stop making us look like trash. Like, come on. Like, geez. Like, we don't have to be, like, out here looking like weirdos and, like, little children fighting with each other over stupid pictures on Instagram.
We don't, for real.
Don't make us look bad. That's like going to a wedding. It's like, get it together. Preventing mom through
Can't we act civilized?
One sucker. Like, and honestly, I have heard from, but the thing is, it does directly affect our pockets, because as drag entertainers, as me and Donna are, like, we do need straight people to come to our shows. And I will say that sometimes when something gets to be too messy, it does hurt your audiences.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we don't want to have to necessarily care about what straight people think about our business, but when you're blasting our business on the internet and they stop coming to our productions, that hurts our bottom line. We're literally just hurting ourselves. That's literally what it is.
Self-inflicted violence. It needs to stop. It needs to stop.
But I want to blast the tea of this person on the internet. Blast the tea when you're hanging out with your good Judies and you're watching a Netflix film that nobody's paying attention to while you're drinking a glass of wine.
If you're taking it to fucking Instagram, you're doing that primarily for your ego.
Yeah. I get just as much enjoyment from my really close, tight-knit group of friends.
Yeah.
Where I tell them about my woes and my BS. We laugh about it, or they give me advice. And I feel better about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to run to the internet to say every goddamn woe I have. And so maybe that's the cure. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's what the point of this is. Like, utilize other resources in your life if you feel like you really need to form a tea page or something like that. Get a better group of friends.
Don't be a juvenile bummer. Like, have a kiki and just, like, be queer and fun.
So the title of the episode is Don't Be a Juvenile Bummer. Have a kiki. What was the last thing you said?
Be queer and have fun.
Be queer and have fun. Okay, I'll try to remember that.
I think that about sums it up.
It does. That was a really good outro.
So yeah, as you know by now, we have our Patreon out, so check that out. That'll be on our website. Thank y'all for tuning in.
And honestly, listeners, this has been a really great time unpacking, once again, trauma with you. I feel like I should have a sign out that does that every time. Thanks for unpacking trauma with me today.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And we hope you tune in to future episodes. And like we said, hit us up, check out our website, and we hope to see you at our live events.
And your nose smells good.
Yeah, sure.
Bye.
Bye. This has been another episode of A Gem of a Secret podcast. The hosts of A Gem of a Secret podcast are Donna and Coco Gem Holiday. You can follow Donna at Donatella_MySecrets on Instagram.
You may follow Coco Gem Holiday at Coco Gem Holiday on Instagram. Original music by Touche Douche and Party Favors. You can follow them respectively at Touche Likes Beef and Party Favors Music on Instagram. For more content, follow them online at www.agemofasecretpodcast.com. That is www.agemofasecretpodcast.com.